In the crisp autumn morning of 1617, as the salty breeze swept through Jamestown's harbor, an English merchant vessel prepared for its Atlantic journey. In its hold lay a cargo that would change the course of history: 20,000 pounds of dried tobacco leaves. The creaking wooden planks of the ship held not just a commodity, but the seeds of an economic revolution that would reshape the Americas forever. Picture yourself standing on those docks in Colonial, Virginia. The air is thick with the sweet, earthy aroma of cured tobacco leaves being loaded into the ship's hold. Each barrel and crate represents countless hours of careful cultivation, the knowledge of generations, and the labor of many hands. These leaves, so carefully packed and prepared, would soon become more precious than silver in the markets of London and Amsterdam. Who could have imagined that a simple plant, first used in sacred ceremonies by indigenous peoples, would become the foundation of empires? This green gold would transform tiny colonial settlements into powerful economic centers, create new social classes, and forever alter the balance of power in the Atlantic world. Through the story of tobacco, we witness the birth of modern commerce and the complex web of trade that would connect continents. From the fertile fields of Virginia to the elegant smoking rooms of European nobility, tobacco would write its story across the pages of history with golden letters. It would build fortunes for some while demanding terrible sacrifices from others, especially the enslaved people whose forced labor fueled this lucrative trade. Today, we embark on a journey through time to uncover how this remarkable leaf reshaped not just colonial America, but the entire global map of power and wealth. We'll explore how a plant that had been cultivated for millennia by indigenous peoples became the cornerstone of colonial economics, forever changing the destinies of nations and peoples across the Atlantic world. This is not just a story about agriculture or trade. It's a tale of human ambition, innovation, and the profound consequences of economic transformation. As we delve into this fascinating history, we'll discover how the decisions made in those early colonial days continue to echo through time, shaping our world even today. Welcome to a journey through time, where we'll discover how a simple leaf changed the world. This is the story of tobacco, the green gold that built America. The story of tobacco in colonial America is intrinsically linked to the remarkable individuals who shaped its destiny. Let us meet these pivotal characters who transformed a native plant into a global commodity. In 1612, a determined English settler named John Rolfe arrived in Virginia carrying precious cargo: seeds of Nicotiana tabacum from the Spanish Caribbean. Unlike the harsh native Virginia tobacco, these seeds would yield a smoother, more palatable variety that would soon captivate European tastes. Rolfe wasn't merely a farmer. He was an innovator who understood both agriculture and market demands. His experimentation with curing methods, particularly the development of flue-curing techniques, would revolutionize tobacco production, creating the sweet-scented tobacco that would become Virginia's trademark. But Rolfe's influence extended beyond agriculture. His marriage to Pocahontas, daughter of Chief Powhatan, in 1614, proved to be a masterful diplomatic move. This union ushered in the Peace of Pocahontas, a period of relative stability that allowed the colony to focus on developing its tobacco industry. Through this marriage, Rolfe became a bridge between two worlds, though history would show this bridge came at a considerable cost to indigenous peoples. Long before European ships reached American shores, indigenous peoples had developed sophisticated knowledge of tobacco cultivation and use. The plant held deep spiritual significance in their cultures, used in religious ceremonies, diplomatic relations, and healing practices. Their agricultural expertise included understanding optimal growing conditions, seasonal timing, and the delicate process of curing leaves. Native Americans viewed tobacco as a sacred gift from the Creator, using it in peace pipes, vision quests, and ceremonial offerings. Their sophisticated knowledge encompassed not just cultivation, but also the plant's medicinal properties, using it to treat various ailments. However, as European colonization intensified, their control over this sacred plant gradually diminished, transforming their spiritual and medicinal herb into a commercial commodity. Among the most notable colonial tobacco farmers were future American leaders Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Jefferson meticulously documented his tobacco cultivation experiments at Monticello, while Washington later recognized the crop's toll on soil and shifted to other agricultural pursuits. These prominent figures represented the upper echelon of colonial tobacco culture, managing large plantations that would define the American South's agricultural system. The reality of tobacco farming created two distinct classes: wealthy plantation owners and small-scale farmers. While large plantation owners amassed considerable wealth and political influence, small farmers often struggled to compete in an increasingly demanding market. This economic disparity would help shape colonial social structures. Behind these success stories lay the brutal reality of labor. Initially, indentured servants from Europe worked the tobacco fields, bound by contracts that often proved harsh and exploitative. However, as tobacco profits soared, the labor system shifted dramatically toward African slavery. These enslaved workers endured backbreaking labor in the fields, facing extreme conditions while developing expert knowledge of tobacco cultivation that contributed significantly to the crop's success. The tobacco fields became sites of both innovation and immense human suffering, where agricultural expertise merged with forced labor to create unprecedented wealth for some while destroying countless lives in the process. This complex legacy of technical achievement and human exploitation would leave an indelible mark on American history, shaping not only economic systems but also social structures that would persist for generations. Step back in time with me to experience the vivid world of colonial tobacco, where every sense tells a story of agricultural innovation and human perseverance. Dawn breaks over the Virginia tobacco fields, and the air is already thick with humidity. The vast expanse of green leaves stretches toward the horizon, each plant standing chest-high, their broad leaves glistening with morning dew. The distinctive, earthy sweet aroma of ripening tobacco permeates the air, a scent that would become synonymous with colonial wealth. In these fields, the work is relentless. The summer sun beats down mercilessly as workers move methodically between the rows. Listen closely, and you'll hear the distinctive crack of leaves being harvested, a precise skill passed down through generations. Each leaf must be picked at exactly the right time, neither too early nor too late. The sound of hands carefully breaking the thick stems mingles with the rustle of leaves in the hot breeze. Inside the curing barns, the atmosphere transforms. These tall, wooden structures are filled with row upon row of tobacco leaves, hanging from tier poles in the dim light. The air is heavy with a profound, almost intoxicating sweetness as the leaves slowly transform from bright green to rich brown. The temperature must be carefully controlled. Too hot, and the leaves will crisp; too cool, and they might rot. The precise arrangement of fires and ventilation creates a delicate dance of heat and smoke that turns raw leaves into valuable commodity. The bustling colonial ports present an entirely different scene. Here, the product of months of labor converges in a flurry of commercial activity. Massive hogsheads, wooden barrels each containing hundreds of pounds of pressed tobacco leaves, roll down curved paths called tobacco rolls from warehouses to waiting ships. The hollow thunder of these barrels mingles with the shouts of sailors and the creaking of ship timbers. In the inspection houses, a crucial drama unfolds. Official inspectors, appointed by colonial authorities, meticulously examine samples from each hogshead. These men wield enormous power, as their judgment determines whether a farmer's crop will be certified for sale or condemned as inferior. The air is tense as they break open sample leaves, assess their color, texture, and aroma with practiced expertise. The waterfront warehouses tell their own story. These robust buildings, their wooden floors worn smooth by countless rolling hogsheads, store thousands of pounds of tobacco awaiting shipment. The sweet scent of cured tobacco mingles with the salt air and tar of the harbor. Merchants pace the floors, negotiating prices and arranging shipments, their voices echoing off the high ceilings as they haggle over the latest market prices from London. Trading ships line the wharves, their holds gradually filling with the hogsheads that represent the colony's economic lifeblood. Each vessel bound for Europe carries not just tobacco, but the hopes and fortunes of countless colonial farmers. The loading process is precise and methodical. The heavy barrels must be carefully stowed to maintain the ship's balance for the treacherous Atlantic crossing. This complex choreography of cultivation, curing, inspection, and shipping represents more than just an agricultural process. It's the beating heart of colonial commerce, a system that transformed simple leaves into the currency of empire. In these fields and ports, you witness the foundation of American economic power being laid, one leaf, one barrel, one ship at a time. The scene is both beautiful and sobering, a testament to human ingenuity and determination, but also to the harsh realities of colonial life, where fortunes were built on the back of forced labor, and where the dream of prosperity came at an immense human cost. Our story begins long before European ships touched American shores, in a time when tobacco held sacred significance among indigenous peoples across the Americas. Let us journey through the transformation of this ancient plant into a global economic force. In the centuries before colonization, tobacco was far more than a simple plant. It was a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. Native Americans cultivated Nicotiana rustica, a potent variety used in religious ceremonies, diplomatic meetings, and healing rituals. Shamans and medicine men carefully guarded the knowledge of its cultivation and use, passing down sacred traditions through generations. When European explorers first encountered tobacco in the late 15th century, they witnessed its use in contexts that both fascinated and perplexed them. Christopher Columbus's sailors observed Caribbean natives inhaling dried leaves through Y-shaped tubes called tobago. Initially dismissed as a curious native practice, tobacco soon captured European imagination through reports of its supposed medicinal properties. Early accounts spoke of its ability to cure everything from headaches to cancer, sparking intense interest among European physicians and botanists. The real transformation began in the early 1600s, as European settlers began experimenting with tobacco cultivation in their new American colonies. This period marked a crucial shift from tobacco as a sacred plant to a commercial crop. John Rolfe's introduction of Caribbean tobacco seeds to Virginia in 1612 proved to be a turning point. His sweeter, milder variety better suited European tastes than the harsh native species. The development of cultivation techniques became increasingly sophisticated. Farmers learned the precise timing for planting and harvesting, the ideal spacing between plants, and the critical importance of soil management. They discovered that tobacco required intense care, from the delicate handling of young seedlings to the precise moment of harvest when leaves reached peak maturity. Trading networks began to emerge, first linking colonial ports to London, then expanding to Amsterdam, Bremen, and other European commercial centers. Merchants developed complex systems for grading, pricing, and trading tobacco, while colonial authorities established inspection systems to maintain quality standards. This period saw the emergence of tobacco as a form of currency in the colonies, used to pay taxes, buy goods, and even pay clergy salaries. By the mid-17th century, tobacco had triggered an economic explosion that would reshape the colonial landscape. European demand seemed insatiable, with tobacco becoming a symbol of sophistication and social status across the continent. The streets of London filled with coffee houses where men gathered to smoke and discuss politics, while European nobles commissioned elaborate tobacco-related accessories made of silver and gold. This unprecedented demand transformed the American colonial landscape. Vast forests were cleared to make way for tobacco fields, forever altering the ecological balance of the Chesapeake region. The characteristic architecture of tobacco barns began to dot the countryside, while colonial ports bustled with activity as ships arrived to transport the precious cargo to European markets. The plantation system emerged as the dominant mode of production, fundamentally altering colonial society. Large landowners amassed enormous wealth and political influence, while the demand for labor led to the tragic expansion of the Atlantic slave trade. Tobacco plantations became self-contained worlds, with their own social hierarchies, labor systems, and economic networks. By the early 18th century, tobacco had become more than just a crop. It was the engine driving colonial development. It financed the growth of cities, funded the establishment of educational institutions, and shaped political structures. The plant that native peoples had once used in sacred ceremonies had become the foundation of a new economic order, one that would have lasting implications for American society. This transformation of tobacco from sacred plant to global commodity serves as a powerful lens through which to view larger themes in American history: the collision of cultures, the emergence of capitalism, the exploitation of human labor, and the complex relationship between agriculture, commerce, and social development. The story of colonial tobacco is preserved through a rich tapestry of primary sources and material artifacts that provide invaluable insights into this transformative period of American history. The Virginia Company records stand as one of our most comprehensive windows into the early tobacco trade. These meticulously kept ledgers, dating from 1619 to 1624, detail everything from shipping manifests to profit calculations, revealing the dramatic increase in tobacco exports during these pivotal years. The records show that tobacco exports grew from 20,000 pounds in 1617 to over 500,000 pounds by 1624, demonstrating the explosive growth of this commodity. John Rolfe's letters, particularly his correspondence with the Virginia Company directors between 1612 and 1616, provide detailed accounts of early cultivation techniques. His 1614 letter describing the successful cultivation of the Caribbean tobacco variety marks a watershed moment in colonial agriculture. Rolfe's writings meticulously document the trial-and-error process of adapting foreign tobacco to Virginia's soil and climate, including specific instructions for seed selection, soil preparation, and curing methods. Colonial farm inventories offer intimate glimpses into the daily operations of tobacco plantations. These documents, typically created for estate settlements or property transfers, list everything from the number of tobacco plants in the field to the tools used for cultivation. The 1622 inventory of Abraham Percy's plantation, for example, records not only his tobacco stocks but also the presence of specialized curing barns and processing tools, illustrating the sophisticated infrastructure required for tobacco production. Archaeological excavations across the colonial Chesapeake region have unearthed a wealth of physical evidence. Clay pipes, ranging from crude locally made specimens to elegant imported Dutch and English examples, tell the story of tobacco consumption patterns. The evolution of pipe design, from the small bowls of the early 1600s to the larger bowls of the late 17th century, reflects changes in smoking habits and tobacco availability. Processing tools recovered from colonial sites provide tangible evidence of tobacco cultivation techniques. Specialized hoes designed for delicate tobacco plants, cutting knives for harvest, and the remains of curing barn structures demonstrate the technical sophistication of colonial tobacco farming. Of particular interest are the discovered pressing screws and molds used to pack tobacco into hogsheads for shipping, showing the standardization of tobacco processing. Perhaps most fascinating are the preserved tobacco notes and warehouse receipts that served as currency in colonial Virginia. These paper documents, some still bearing tobacco stains, were legal tender backed by tobacco stored in colonial warehouses. The Virginia State Library holds several examples dating from the 1730s, providing physical evidence of tobacco's role as money in colonial society. Recently discovered account books from major European trading houses offer detailed information about the international tobacco trade. These records, including those from the Dutch West India Company and various London merchants, reveal complex networks of credit, debt, and commerce that span the Atlantic. Price lists, quality grades, and customer preferences documented in these books demonstrate how colonial tobacco shaped global commerce. Agricultural tools and equipment preserved in colonial-era barns and museum collections provide insights into the labor-intensive process of tobacco cultivation. Iron tobacco pegs used for stringing leaves, portions of early curing barn ventilation systems, and examples of packing presses all survive as testament to the technological innovations spurred by the tobacco trade. The archaeological record also preserves evidence of the human cost of tobacco cultivation. Excavations of slave quarters on tobacco plantations have yielded artifacts that document the lives of enslaved workers who made this economic system possible. Personal items, tools, and living spaces tell a poignant story of the individuals whose forced labor fueled the tobacco economy. These diverse sources, both documentary and material, combine to create a detailed picture of how tobacco transformed colonial America. From company ledgers to archaeological remains, each piece of evidence adds depth to our understanding of this crucial chapter in economic and social history. The rise of tobacco cultivation in colonial America triggered profound and lasting changes across economic, social, and environmental spheres, fundamentally reshaping the New World and its connections to global markets. The emergence of tobacco as currency represents one of the most innovative financial developments in colonial history. By 1620, Virginia had established the first tobacco-backed monetary system in the colonies, where tobacco receipts became legal tender. These tobacco notes could be used to pay taxes, settle debts, and purchase goods. At its peak, this system was so sophisticated that different grades of tobacco commanded different values, creating a complex economic hierarchy based on crop quality. The tobacco trade financed colonial expansion through multiple channels. Revenue from tobacco exports funded the construction of ports, roads, and other critical infrastructure. In Virginia alone, tobacco exports grew from 20,000 pounds in 1617 to over 38 million pounds by 1750. This astronomical growth provided the capital necessary for colonial development, funding everything from public buildings to military defenses. International trade networks centered on tobacco created lasting commercial relationships that would define Atlantic commerce for centuries. Major European trading houses established permanent presences in colonial ports, while colonial merchants developed sophisticated systems for grading, pricing, and shipping tobacco. These networks extended from the Chesapeake to London, Amsterdam, Hamburg, and beyond, creating complex webs of credit and commerce that laid the groundwork for modern international trade. The emergence of the tobacco aristocracy fundamentally altered colonial social structures. Successful tobacco planters formed a new elite class, known as the First Families of Virginia. These families, such as the Byrds, Carters, and Lees, dominated not only economic but also political life. Their wealth, derived from tobacco, allowed them to build magnificent plantation houses, educate their children in Europe, and establish themselves as a colonial aristocracy that would influence American society for generations. The tobacco economy's labor demands led to the tragic intensification of slavery in North America. The shift from indentured servitude to enslaved labor occurred gradually, but inexorably as tobacco cultivation expanded. By 1700, slavery had become institutionalized in the tobacco colonies, with devastating consequences for African and African American communities. The tobacco plantation system created distinctive patterns of labor management, social control, and racial hierarchy that would persist long after the colonial period. Relations with indigenous peoples underwent dramatic changes as tobacco cultivation expanded. Native Americans, who had traditionally viewed tobacco as a sacred plant, watched as their ceremonial crop became a commercial commodity. The endless demand for new tobacco lands led to increased territorial conflicts and the displacement of native communities. Traditional trading relationships were disrupted as colonial authorities sought to control tobacco production and trade. Tobacco's intensive cultivation methods led to severe soil depletion. The plant's heavy nutrient requirements exhausted soil fertility within 3 to 4 years of continuous cultivation. This created a pattern of land exhaustion and abandonment that would characterize colonial agriculture. Planters responded by continuously seeking new lands, driving territorial expansion and environmental degradation. The demand for new tobacco fields resulted in massive deforestation across the Chesapeake region. By 1700, significant portions of coastal Virginia and Maryland had been cleared for tobacco cultivation. This deforestation had cascading effects on local ecosystems, including increased soil erosion, altered watershed patterns, and the loss of wildlife habitat. Local biodiversity suffered as monoculture tobacco farming replaced diverse forest ecosystems. Native plant species were eliminated to make way for tobacco fields, while indigenous animal populations were disrupted by habitat loss. The introduction of European agricultural practices also brought new pests and diseases that further altered local ecological balances. These environmental changes had long-term consequences for regional agriculture. The cycle of soil exhaustion and land abandonment created a pattern of agricultural expansion that would continue well into the 19th century. Abandoned tobacco fields, depleted of nutrients, often required decades to recover their fertility, leaving behind a patchwork of degraded lands across the colonial landscape. The impact of colonial tobacco cultivation continues to resonate today. The economic systems it helped establish, the social hierarchies it created, and the environmental changes it triggered have left lasting marks on American society. From modern agricultural practices to patterns of land use and social organization, the legacy of colonial tobacco remains visible in contemporary America. These multifaceted impacts demonstrate how a single crop could reshape not just an economy, but entire social and environmental systems. The tobacco trade's influence extended far beyond mere commerce, fundamentally altering the trajectory of American development and creating patterns that would influence the nation's growth for centuries to come. The tobacco trade not only transformed economic systems, but also drove significant developments in medical understanding, scientific inquiry, and technological innovation during the colonial period. Colonial-era medical theories about tobacco reflected a fascinating blend of traditional wisdom and emerging scientific thought. European physicians of the 16th and 17th centuries initially hailed tobacco as a universal panacea, incorporating it into the ancient humoral theory of medicine. Nicholas Menards, in his influential 1571 treatise, Medicinal History of the Things Brought from the New World, listed over 25 medical conditions supposedly treatable with tobacco, including toothache, joint pain, and even plague symptoms. The therapeutic uses of tobacco in colonial medicine were diverse and widespread. Physicians prescribed tobacco smoke enemas for various ailments, while tobacco poultices were applied to wounds and insect bites. Tobacco snuff was recommended for headaches and nasal conditions, reflecting the belief that the plant could purge harmful substances from the body. Ship surgeons routinely carried tobacco supplies as part of their medical kits, considering it essential for treating various seafaring ailments. However, the first scientific debates about tobacco's effects emerged by the late 17th century. King James I of England's famous Counterblast to Tobacco, 1604, represented an early critique, describing smoking as a custom loathsome to the eye, hateful to the nose, harmful to the brain, dangerous to the lungs. Medical practitioners began documenting cases of tobacco-related illnesses, leading to the first systematic studies of its health impacts. Dr. John Hill's 1761 publication, Cautions Against the Immoderate Use of Snuff, is considered one of the earliest scientific works linking tobacco to cancer. The development of curing techniques represents one of the most significant technological achievements of colonial tobacco cultivation. The evolution from simple air curing to more sophisticated flue curing methods revolutionized tobacco processing. Colonists developed specialized barns with controlled ventilation systems, using precisely regulated heat to transform raw leaves into the golden-colored, mild-flavored tobacco preferred by European markets. These innovations included the introduction of external fireboxes connected to internal flues, allowing better temperature control and reducing fire risks. Development of tiered hanging systems that maximized curing space while ensuring proper air circulation. Creation of adjustable ventilation panels to regulate humidity and airflow during the curing process. Cultivation methods underwent continuous refinement as planters gained experience with different soil types and climate conditions. Major innovations included development of seedbed preparation techniques, including the use of brush burning to sterilize soil and control weeds. Introduction of systematic crop rotation patterns to maintain soil fertility. Creation of specialized tools for different stages of cultivation, from custom-designed hoes for young plants to specialized cutting knives for harvest. Storage and transportation technologies evolved to meet the demands of international trade. Significant advances included design of improved hogsheads, wooden barrels, with reinforced construction to better protect tobacco during ocean transport. Development of specialized warehouse ventilation systems to prevent moisture damage during storage. Creation of mechanical presses that could compress more tobacco into each hogshead, maximizing shipping efficiency. Innovation of rolling roads, specially designed paths for moving heavy hogsheads from plantations to shipping points. These technological developments were not limited to tobacco processing. The need to transport large quantities of tobacco led to innovations in road construction and water transport. Colonial engineers developed new types of wagons specifically designed for tobacco transport and improved river navigation systems to facilitate shipping. The tobacco trade also spurred innovations in quality control and standardization. Colonial authorities established sophisticated inspection systems, developing detailed criteria for grading tobacco quality. This led to the creation of standardized inspection warehouses equipped with specialized tools and techniques for assessing tobacco quality. Financial innovations emerged to handle the complex trade requirements. Merchants developed new forms of credit instruments, while colonial governments created sophisticated systems for tracking and verifying tobacco notes used as currency. These financial innovations included development of warehouse receipt systems that could function as transferable currency, creation of standardized quality grades that could be traded sight unseen, establishment of complex insurance systems for tobacco shipments. The demand for efficient processing led to the development of new architectural forms. Tobacco barns evolved from simple structures to sophisticated buildings with multiple technological innovations. Multi-tiered interior arrangements to maximize drying space. Adjustable ventilation systems to control curing conditions. Specialized loading doors and equipment for efficient handling. These technological and scientific developments had lasting impacts beyond the tobacco industry. Many of the innovations in agriculture, transportation, and quality control would later be applied to other crops and industries. The financial systems developed for the tobacco trade influenced the development of American banking and commerce. The intensive focus on tobacco cultivation also led to advances in understanding plant biology and soil science. Colonial planters became expert observers of weather patterns, soil conditions, and plant diseases, contributing to the development of agricultural science in America. Their careful documentation of growing conditions and experimental results helped establish early frameworks for scientific agriculture. This period of innovation demonstrates how the demands of a single crop could drive widespread technological and scientific advancement, creating lasting impacts on agricultural practice, engineering, and commerce. The solutions developed for tobacco cultivation and trade would influence American technological development well into the industrial age. The legacy of colonial tobacco continues to reverberate through our modern world, creating fascinating parallels and persistent challenges that bridge centuries of economic and social development. The modern tobacco industry traces its roots directly to colonial enterprises. Companies like Philip Morris, now Altria, and R.J. Reynolds emerged from the infrastructure and trading networks established in colonial times. The paths of consolidation from small colonial operations to modern multinational corporations reveal how early tobacco wealth laid the groundwork for corporate America. Several modern tobacco companies still operate from historic locations in Virginia and North Carolina, using lands that have been under continuous tobacco cultivation for over 3 centuries. The economic mechanisms developed during colonial times, from quality grading systems to international marketing networks, continue to influence modern tobacco commerce. The industry's sophisticated lobbying techniques and marketing strategies evolved from practices first developed by colonial merchant associations protecting their interests in London and other European capitals. Modern discussions about tobacco cultivation mirror colonial-era concerns in surprising ways. Today's debates about sustainable agriculture echo colonial planters' struggles with soil depletion. The current push for crop diversification reflects lessons learned from the dangers of monocrop dependency that colonial economies experienced. Small-scale tobacco farmers today face challenges remarkably similar to their colonial predecessors, particularly regarding market access and price stability. The influence of colonial tobacco trade patterns remains visible in contemporary economic relationships. Many modern international trade routes follow patterns established during the colonial tobacco trade. Traditional tobacco-growing regions, particularly in the American South, continue to grapple with economic transitions as the industry evolves. The decline of tobacco farming in these areas presents challenges similar to those faced by colonial regions when tobacco prices fluctuated. How can a single crop reshape entire societies? The tobacco story provides a compelling case study for understanding how agricultural commodities can drive massive social and economic change. This raises important questions about modern commodity crops like soybeans, palm oil, or coffee, and their potential to reshape contemporary societies and economies. What price do societies pay for rapid economic development? The colonial tobacco economy's dependence on enslaved labor forces us to confront difficult questions about the human cost of economic progress. This historical example remains relevant as we consider modern labor practices in global agriculture and manufacturing. What can colonial tobacco teach us about contemporary agricultural challenges? The environmental and economic vulnerabilities created by tobacco monoculture offer valuable insights for modern agricultural planning. These historical lessons become particularly relevant as we face challenges of climate change and sustainable agriculture. The tobacco industry's colonial legacy provides valuable frameworks for analyzing modern agricultural and economic challenges. Colonial tobacco's impact on soil health and forest coverage offers crucial lessons for modern agricultural practices. How can we balance economic growth with environmental preservation? The exploitation inherent in colonial tobacco production raises important questions about modern agricultural labor conditions worldwide. What responsibilities do corporations and consumers have in ensuring ethical labor practices? Colonial dependence on tobacco highlights the dangers of economic monoculture. How can modern economies better balance specialization with diversification? The study of colonial tobacco provides valuable insights for addressing contemporary challenges. Understanding how colonial farmers adapted to changing conditions can inform modern approaches to agricultural adaptation and innovation. Regions that successfully transitioned from tobacco dependence offer models for modern communities facing similar economic transitions. The colonial tobacco economy's social impact provides important context for modern discussions about economic justice and labor rights. These historical lessons become particularly relevant as we face modern challenges of sustainable agriculture, fair labor practices, and economic development. By understanding how colonial tobacco shaped America, we can better comprehend and address contemporary agricultural and economic challenges. The story of colonial tobacco remains relevant not just as historical analysis, but as a source of practical insights for modern policymakers, business leaders, and citizens. Its lessons about economic dependency, environmental sustainability, and social justice continue to inform contemporary debates and decision-making. Join us at Modern Age Chronicles as we continue to explore how historical events shape our present and future. Like, comment, and share to be part of this ongoing conversation about history's lessons for today's world. Subscribe to receive regular updates on similar fascinating historical analyses that help us understand our modern world.